The foam from adding gelatin to your coffee, unmatched. Like a little fluffy marshmallow on top of a morning latte. Anyway, today's video is not about delicious coffee hacks, though. Let me know if you want that video. Today's video is about tips to make dietary restriction easier, less overwhelming, less all-consuming. Now, I can already hear people screaming in the comments,
what in the name of eating disorders is this BS?
Let's just touch on this first. Here's the thing. Wanting to change your body can come from a place of self-hate or from self-love. Wanting to lose fat can come from a place of self-hate, or it can come from a place of self-love. Wanting to heal your body from chronic health issues that are causing you lots of issues in your life, honestly, usually that just comes from a place of self-love and self-compassion and being fed up with dealing with the chronic health issues.
Don't really know how that would come from a place of self-hate, but maybe it can.
My point is that these things, wanting to change your body, whether it be build muscle, lose fat, heal chronic health issues, whatever it may be, none of it is inherently good or bad. It really just comes down to your mindset going into these things. And what that also means is that the steps that it sometimes requires to get there, so changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, those things aren't inherently good or bad either. It depends on your mindset and why you are doing it. And yes, these things can absolutely have a dark side, especially when it's coming from a place of hating your body. Things can get really ugly. And even when it does come from a positive place of respecting and loving and honoring your body, the steps required to get there can often bring out our worst in our relationships with our bodies and with food and with exercise and with health. Even if you're coming from the most positive place, restriction can lead to obsession and to self-criticism and just,
you know, the whole cascade from there.
And so like that's why I want to talk about this today, because I am working on changing things myself, namely healing my skin and my health. And I'm working with a nutritionist who's put me on a relatively restrictive diet plan to help with the healing process. And so this is something that I have been navigating recently and figuring out how to make sure that I can implement these lifestyle changes and this restrictive diet plan and make sure it doesn't become obsessive. It doesn't become a way to restrict with an unhealthy mindset. Basically making sure that I don't even get close to towing the line with an eating disorder. And I've seen a lot of clients navigate this as well. Like I've had clients come to me who had just finished working with like a functional medicine practitioner who put them on like a bunch of really restrictive diets to help them heal because they really needed to, because they had a lot of health issues, but it resulted in skewing their relationship with food. So when they came to me afterwards to help them lose the fat after they healed their bodies, they were coming at it from kind of a not the healthiest place. And so I think this is a conversation that isn't had enough, is like navigating the nuance here, because I think a lot of what tends to happen on social media, at least in regards to more restrictive diets and healing protocols and even like diets for fat loss, is a lot of people will immediately slap the label on it of this is disordered eating behavior. And navigating the nuance of the mindset behind the behavior is how you can really make sure that you can implement these things that you need to implement to get to where you want to be without it becoming disordered eating behavior. Basically, the last thing anyone wants is to change their body positively,
but destroy their mental health in the process.
So that's what we're talking about today. So my diet that I am following in an attempt to heal my skin has a huge focus on animal products and restricts a lot of other things. So essentially I can eat any animal product, any fruit, and then I just have very limited vegetables, and then pretty much everything else is off the table. Not entirely, like you don't have to completely avoid nuts and seeds and grains. The idea is to keep them out of my diet as much as possible. So my breakfast today is,
I'm gonna spill all my fruit.
some hard-boiled eggs, some prosciutto and turkey, raw cheddar cheese, and then for fruit I have raspberries, blackberries, and this cool little discovery that I just made, kiwi berries. And this brings me to my first tip of essentially not letting the restriction get you down. And that is, instead of focusing on what you can't have and letting that make you feel super restricted and resentful towards your food or towards your body or whatever it may be, focus instead on things that you are adding in. So fruit has honestly never been a huge part of my diet. It's just not something I've really gravitated towards, but it is a huge part of this diet that I'm currently doing. And so I am focusing on all of the fun, exciting fruits that I can add in. And I'm also focusing on making it a fun experience by seeking out new fun fruits that I can try, like kiwi berries. I didn't even know these were a thing. I was looking for raspberries and then I just saw these in the grocery store. I was like, yes. I also tried horned melon the other day. I had no idea how to eat that, but that was a fun discovery, to cut it open and see what was inside. And no matter what your diet is or what you're restricting, usually when you're restricting in some capacity, you are either adding in new foods that you can just focus on and think about and celebrate, or you can use the restriction as an opportunity to create space for new and other foods that you can experiment with. So like, even if you're just purely restricting calories in order to lose fat, you're probably gonna have to change up your diet a little bit, and restricting some of the more calorie dense foods gives you space to experiment with some of the less calorie dense foods. And simply doing this is just gonna create a much more positive association with whatever dietary changes that you're making, which is just gonna help prevent that kind of negative, restrictive mindset from setting in.
One very long digestive tract later.
Tip number 2 is, if you can, work with a therapist. One of the biggest things that I see getting in people's way a lot and creating an environment that fosters a negative relationship with food in the context of restriction is perfectionistic tendencies. So, you know, really seeing the diet or lifestyle changes as all or nothing, and if you can't do it absolutely perfectly, then you're not gonna do it at all. And this results in either you don't do it at all, so you get nowhere, or you lean into the perfectionism and you become super restrictive and obsessive and then end up developing more of a negative relationship with your food or body or etc. And chances are, if you're applying your perfectionistic tendencies to this thing, you're probably doing that to a lot of things in life, and therapy would probably help with a lot of things. Hi, hello, yes, that's me. But other things that I see getting in people's ways that a therapist could help a lot with is unreasonable expectations. Expecting overnight results, or just expecting results that are not like physically possible for your body type or your genetics or your health background or whatever it may be. Also, limiting beliefs. I see these getting in so many people's way on their various health and fitness journeys. Like, whether you believe that you're never actually going to be able to lose fat, or you believe that you don't deserve to lose fat, or you believe that you are doomed to have certain health issues for the rest of your life because your mom did and her mom did. There are a huge number of core beliefs that really get in people's way on their health and fitness journey, and that if you aren't aware of, are really going to stand in your way without you seeing them. And working with a therapist is a great way to bring awareness to them, uncover them, and then work your way through them. And if you don't have access to a therapist, then at the very least building your own support network. So tell people what you are doing. Obviously people that you trust and people that support you. Tell them that you want them to call you out if they notice you developing behaviors that might not be optimal for your mental health. You can even create like a regular check-in schedule with them, where for like 5 minutes a week you sit down and you talk to them about how you're feeling about your journey. And that's gonna really help you make sure you are reflecting and really make sure that you're not letting a negative relationship with food or with your body kind of fester and develop without you being aware of it until it's too late. My next tip is to have a strong, positive why. A lot of people talk about how it's important to like know your why when you're trying to accomplish things because it helps keep you motivated and such. But when it comes to restriction and maintaining a positive relationship with food and with your body and with exercise, etc., it's really important that this why be coming from a positive place. Because if, for example, you want to lose fat and your why is because you hate your body, if something starts not going right along your journey, it becomes really easy to sink deeper and deeper and deeper into that negativity. And even if things are going well, you're still kind of reinforcing that negativity by making it something that you're kind of punishing yourself for, right? Like, I hate my body, therefore I have to do these things that are not enjoyable, i.e. restriction. But on the flip side, when your why is a very strong positive, then you can use that to pull yourself through your journey and maintain a much more positive grasp on your relationship with food and things. So if, for example, you know, you want to lose fat, and maybe part of you does want to lose fat because you're not happy with your body, if you can still find something positive, like, I want to lose fat to prove to myself that I can do hard things. Then when times get tough, when you maybe fall off the wagon, when you start to maybe feel a little bit of the restriction kind of getting in there, you can reframe it from that mindset. Instead of saying,
I have to continue to do this because I hate myself.
you can instead say, I want to continue to do this because I am proving to myself that I can do this. Like, this is hard, but I can still do it. It's just like an anchor that you can hold on to keep yourself from getting drowned in the potential negativity. So I just made the most glorious dinner. What shall I call this? Loaded sweet potato fries? I think that's what it is. But this dinner is me following the next tip that I'm gonna give you guys, which is to kind of gamify the process. That might not really be the right word, but let me explain. For me, this diet that I am following to help heal my skin is honestly pretty similar to how I enjoy eating in the first place. So it doesn't feel like that big of a deal to me, but there's only so many times you can have steak with just roasted potato and squash for dinner and not get really bored and start to feel restricted. And so instead of choosing to see that as restriction, I've chosen to see it as a challenge. So I have actively challenged myself to be more creative in the kitchen and see what kinds of fun things like this I can come up with. Like, this specifically is not something I ever would have made if it weren't for being on this diet, but let me tell you, this is bomb. And I'm glad I got to make it. But basically, choosing to see lifestyle changes or diets as a fun challenge and finding a way to find the fun in it can really change your experience of it. And if challenging yourself to be creative in the kitchen isn't your thing, you can do something like download a habit tracker. There's plenty of habit tracker apps that gamify habits, I'm sure. I don't know, I don't have any recommendations,
But I'm sure they exist.
or, you know, if you're the kind of person that's motivated by gold stars, literally like put a gold star on a sticker board every day. Like, anything you can do to take the challenge, make it fun, and then give yourself a reward for it. And this is just gonna help add positivity to the situation and detract from the feeling of restriction, and then also just give positive reinforcement for doing what you're doing.
A little later.
It is now dessert time. I'm about to have a couple of these babies that I have been obsessed with lately. And this brings me to my next tip, which is to not set unnecessary rules for yourself. Is this technically part of my diet plan? No. Did my nutritionist say that I couldn't have this? Also no. Weirdly enough, most of this is actually somewhat compliant with the ingredient list. It's just the amount of sugar that I probably should be cautious of because of inflammation. But if I were to not allow myself to have those or to have dessert at all, I would be imposing those rules on myself. My nutritionist did not say no dessert ever, no sugar ever. When it comes to my diet protocol specifically, those are just things that I should probably limit a little bit, probably just be more aware of, and probably consume a little bit more strategically. And so I'm not having them every night, but I am having them some nights. And this puts me in a much better position to not feel overly or unnecessarily restricted. I see this happen so often. Like, I've had so many clients come to me who want to lose weight, and I will tell them, for example, like, we'll start off like, okay, this week you're gonna eat 2 cups of vegetables and you're gonna do 2 workouts this week. And they'll come back to me the next week and be like, Marissa, I messed up. And I'll say, what happened? And they'll say, well, I ate 3 donuts and this other day I had cake. And I'll be like, when did I tell you you couldn't eat those things? Like, what are these rules? These are not rules that I gave you. You just imposed your own rules, failed at them, and now you feel bad about it and guilty about it when it's not even something you needed to be doing in the first place. It can be really easy, especially for those of us with perfectionistic tendencies, to want to add extra rules and regulations to what we're trying to do, either to accomplish it faster or because, you know, everyone on the internet says this is what you should be doing, and so you just kind of inherently assume it's a rule. But when you're already restricting in some way, the last thing you want to do is add more rules and restrictions, because that's not gonna help. You're just making everything harder for yourself. So I just made myself my little nighttime beverage that I've been having pretty much every night since starting this protocol. It's the Symbiotica Molecular Hydrogen with their Pure Hydration Electrolytes, and then the Ned Mellow Magnesium, all in a big, I don't know how many ounces, 20-ish ounces water. And this was not a tip I had written down, but it was just something that I kind of thought of as I was thinking about making this. Is I'm now drinking this like 2 hours earlier than I was a couple weeks ago, because I'm just so much more on top of my hydration than I was. Focusing on hydration was the first thing that the practitioner that I'm working with told me to do, and admittedly it is something that I have always struggled a lot with, but that was maybe 6 weeks ago, and it's taken this long to actually get in the rhythm and make it an integral part of my lifestyle, I guess now. Like, until very recently, it was still a habit that I was not necessarily struggling with, but something that I was having to constantly remind myself about and think about and prioritize, and only really recently has it become something that I haven't really had to think about as much. And it took 6 weeks to get to this point. The first couple weeks I was not on point with my hydration, and that was the case with my diet too. It wasn't like she told me exactly what to do and immediately I flipped a switch and was able to follow it to a T. It took a good 2 weeks to really feel like I had kind of transitioned to the new diet, and probably another 2 weeks to really feel super solid in it. And the supplements that she told me to take, that took me a good 2 weeks to get consistent with that as well. So my tip here is to take things slow and steady and be gentle with yourself. Don't expect yourself to just be able to like flip a switch overnight and suddenly be able to follow like every single little thing that you're supposed to do perfectly. Sometimes that is practical and you can do it. A lot of the times it's not. For a lot of things like new diets, whether it be following specific macros and trying to hit your macros, or cutting out certain food groups because you're trying to do an elimination diet, or whatever it may be, there's usually some amount of mental learning curve as well. So give yourself permission to take time to transition and ease your way into whatever you're doing. I think one of the biggest reasons people tend to feel really restricted when they start new diets or new protocols is because not only are they restricting, but it's also a very new thing. And so you're not just thinking, oh, I can't eat that, but you're also thinking,
okay, so what else am I supposed to eat? Like, how am I supposed to structure my whole life? This is a complete 180 from what I was doing before.
like, there's all of that mental work that you also have to do just to like learn how to do the new thing. And I think it's really easy to forget that we have that mental work going on, and instead just kind of lump that feeling in with the restriction and just feel really overwhelmed and think it's all because of the restriction, and then end up developing a bad relationship with food or whatever, when in reality you're just not giving yourself enough time and space to adjust something new. And then my last tip, I kind of already mentioned, but I want to make it a tip of its own, and that is to check in with yourself regularly. If you are at all worried about embarking on a new journey and having that create a negative relationship with food for you, then implement steps ahead of time to make sure that that can't happen. If you check in with yourself every Monday or every like Sunday night and go, okay, like how am I feeling? Are my thoughts or behaviors around food or fitness starting to become more disordered? And then have an escape plan. So, you know, maybe if at some point you check in with yourself and you go, you know what? This is starting to feel like it's coming from a not so great place. There's some behaviors that I'm starting to see in myself that are maybe not reflective of the best relationship with food. Then your plan could be to just quit, like just stop in your tracks, cancel what you're doing, go back to your default way of being. Your escape plan could be going to work with a professional. So if you aren't already working with a therapist, starting to work with one. If you're not working with a health professional, whether it be a nutritionist or a personal trainer or someone, you know, who's in line with what you're trying to accomplish, it could be hiring help there. You know yourself best, so you're going to be best able to kind of navigate this part of it. But basically just making sure you're staying aware and accountable to yourself so that you don't end up like deep down the rabbit hole and kind of stuck in a negative place. So those are my tips. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I really want you all to be able to be confident in reaching for goals, in changing your life without being worried that you are going to develop a negative relationship with food or with your body or with health, etc. Because it really is possible to accomplish these things coming from a happy, healthy, positive place. And it honestly is really so much more productive when you're doing so. It can feel a lot more initially motivating to approach change from a negative place. It can feel a lot easier to kick off a weight loss journey because you hate your body rather than because you want to prove to yourself that you can do hard things. But starting a journey from a place of negativity and a place of self-hate is just a recipe for that journey to not go very well, and for it to be a lot less likely that you will actually accomplish your goals. So if you guys have any more tips, if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, please leave those down in the description box below. In the meantime, if you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. It really does support me and my channel. I really genuinely appreciate it. Please share this video with your friends, your family, and your gym buddies. If you want to see more content from me all about health and fitness, you can check it out over here. To see future videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so you get notified when I post a video, and I will see you very soon. Bye!